Excellent.
So we are going to talk about our FY24 fellowship for performing and literary arts today. We're just going to do an overview of the guidelines. And this is a great chance if you have any questions about this particular grant. We're really excited. We're about to announce our FY23 winners. And it's a great time, I think, to start the process for FY24. All right, I'm going to take you to our website, which is where all of our information are housed. So if you have any question and you want to refer back, this is where you should go. I'm going to drop this into the chat so you can see it. It's basically nvartcouncil.org. So this is our homepage, and what you're going to do is actually you're going to navigate to, sorry, let me move my bar out of the way, grants on the top menu. And then you're going to see FY24 grant offerings. You're going to click on that. And then you're going to scroll down and you'll see Artist Fellowship Grant. These are all, so it'll sort itself in the page. If the grant you can apply to now, then it'll say like available grants. And then if it's coming up, then it'll say upcoming grants. So you can see kind of what's coming up and what you want to prepare or apply for. So these are all of our upcoming grants. We just closed our project grant for artists. That might be another one that you should look at if you're an individual artist or have an art project that you want to apply for. Cycle B's applications open October 2nd, and we'll do another webinar to explain what that grant is for and how you can apply it. So here's the Artist Fellowship Grant. And what you're going to do, you're going to click on the guidelines. And it will take you to this PDF, and this PDF you can download to your computer and send to a friend if you think they should apply. I'm just going to go over the guidelines really quickly. All right, so the FY24 Artist Fellowship Grant from the Nevada Arts Council recognizes individual artists living in Nevada who demonstrate excellence in their work. By acknowledging outstanding artistic accomplishments, the program promotes public awareness and appreciation of the role of the artist in our society. In odd fiscal year, this grant is open to visual artists, and in even fiscal year, it is open to performing and literary artists. So this application opened next Monday, May 29th, and it closes July 5th, 2023. So make sure that you are preparing, and if you're planning to apply, make sure you start now, because we usually get like all of your application right like at the end. And make sure that you're submitting it. Don't wait until like midnight or whatever. Don't do that. Like, make sure that you're submitting it before, because we've gotten folks that are like, oh, my computer crashed, or like my network went down. Like, we can't help you at that point if you really missed the deadline. So keep that in mind and make sure you're submitting before the deadline. The grant amount is $5,000, and it's we'll go over the eligibility in a little bit. You have to be an individual artist. You can't apply as a team. You cannot apply as a team. You have to be a Nevada resident, 21 years and older, and not a student. And I'll go over that in a little bit. For the period of support, so you become our Nevada Arts Council Fellow from January to December of 2024. And these are our staff contacts if you have any questions. Okay, so fiscal year 2024 discipline. So for the even fiscal years, we have two categories for our discipline. So first is literary arts, and now we have some changes to our panel process. We've actually separated each of these panels out. So before, let's say for performing arts, we had one panel, 3 panelists, and they're evaluating all of these different panels. So it could be dance and music or theater. So now we have separated them, and we feel that is much more appropriate and fair, because we're finding more panelists that really understands the genre or discipline to evaluate your specific application. All right. So For literary arts, are two different panels. The first one is creative prose, fiction or nonfiction, and dramatic writing. So literary works in all varieties and genres, such as excerpts from fiction novels, short story, and writing for young adults. Dramatic writing that includes original stage plays, screenplays, and audio drama. And then we have another panel for poetry. This includes original work in all forms and genre of poetry. So those will be the two different panels that we'll have. And I just want to also reiterate that traditionally we have 5 fellows from each discipline. And so that means it's 5 totals from these 2 panels in literary arts. Even though we have 2 different panels, we're not going to have 10 fellows for literary art. We're still going to have 5. And if there's funding available, maybe there'll be a 6th fellow, but it's going to be 5 out of the 2 different panel per discipline. And then for performing arts, the first panel will be dance choreography, theater performance, and theater direction. This includes original choreography and performance in all dance forms, including ballet, hip hop, jazz, modern, and tap. Also includes theater performance and direction of a play, opera, musical, or a devised piece of work. And then the second panel for performing arts will be music performance and composition. This includes original composition and performance in all musical genres, including chamber, choral, electronic, experimental, jazz, opera, rock, country, pop, and symphonic. So anything that is music related, you can apply for those genres. So if you have any questions about which genre you should apply to, just send us an email, or you can ask a question in the Q&A, and we'll be happy to help you kind of point you to the right direction. We can't actually tell you which one you should apply to if you're not sure. That's ultimately up to you, but we can kind of talk about it or talk through it with you. Okay, so eligibility. So you must be a current Nevada resident and have been in residence for at least 1 year prior to the date of the application. And our grant application will require you to submit like proof of residency. So, letters with your address on it that's at least a year old, or a driver license that shows your resident status. You must be a US citizen or have legal resident status. You must be 21 years or older. You must not be enrolled as a degree-seeking student. So our fellowship and our grants are not scholarship grants. They're specifically for artists who are not students. So you could be enrolled in college for, let's say you're learning Spanish and you're taking courses at a community college for Spanish, but you already have your degree, or you're not seeking a degree, like that is just for you. Or maybe you're taking a pottery class, but you're, at a community college and you're not pursuing a degree, you're just taking it for fun. That's totally fine. You just cannot be a degree seeking student to apply for this particular opportunity. Individual artists applying for artist fellowship must be actively practicing in the discipline, and this should reflect in their written statements. Artists working in collaboration or groups must apply as individuals. Artists who have previously received 2 or more Nevada Arts Council fellowship are ineligible. So I don't think we have any questions so far.
Yeah. Hey, Sapira, can you promote Krista so she was
Sure.
Just in case Krista would like to add something. Yeah, and I don't see anything in the chat as of yet, or there's a Q&A here.
All right.
Okay.
Are you able to submit more than one project? So Tina, this is not a project grant. This is a fellowship grant. So I'll go over the work samples and the criteria for the work sample. I think that's what your question means. But we'll go over that in a little bit. You can submit work samples to describe the excellence in your work, and I'll show you that in a little bit. And then Joan, you said if poetry has been established previously, is it still eligible? Yes, you can still apply. Yeah.
Published or non-published work is eligible.
Yes, and we'll go over that in a little bit too. Okay. So next part. So the grant amount is $5,000, no match required. Sorry. Grant fund will be distributed upon receipt of the signed grantee documents. The Artist Fellowship does not need to be used for any specific expense as awarded to an artist as an honorarium. All grantee must complete a final report online within 45 days at the end of their grant cycle to stay in compliance and remain eligible for future Nevada Arts Council grants. The final report will request detailed information on all grant-related activities. So the grant amount is $5,000. It's not tied to a project. It's just for you because we really believe in your work and we want you to continue doing what you do. That's what this fellowship is for. But you will have to fill out a final report at the end of your grant cycle, just so we can capture the data and you will say compliance for future grants. And if you want to apply, but you haven't finished a previous grant final reports, please do so. Please reach out because we want you to be able to apply. And we really, really need that final report. So if there's any outstanding things that you have to do, please do them as soon as you can. All right, so we're going to go over the review process and criteria. A review panel will adjudicate eligible application using the criteria below and make funding recommendation to the Nevada Arts Council Board. Artist Fellowship grant applicants are evaluated using a concealed review process where each applicant is identified by a number for the purpose of grant discussion. And if you want more information, you can go and review our grant guideline, which is our grant policy, which is available on our website. And here's the 3 criteria that the panelists will be evaluating based on what you submit. So first is clear demonstration of the artistic intent and process. Let's say your statement, does your written statement actually speak to what your work does? Consistency in the exceptional caliber of work. That's another 10 points. And then evidence of artistic impact, such as influence within a specific community or genre of art. That's an additional 10 points. So the application is total worth 30 points. In the review process, there is a panelist made up of 3 individuals that are professional in their field. They are made up of in-state and out-of-state folks. And during the panel meeting, well, before I'll just talk a little bit about the panel process. What's going to happen is when we review your when we receive your application and we make sure that you're eligible for this grant, then it goes to an online review process where the panelists will rate the application and provide comments. And after the online review process is completed, then we'll have a live Zoom panel meeting that you can attend. It has to follow the Nevada open meeting laws, which means there's a specific period for attendees to comment, but the panelists and the staff will not be addressing things that are commented or comments that are provided during those open comments section. So whatever you're submitting online is what the panelists will be reviewing. And then the panelists will talk and adjudicate the applications live on Zoom. And then at the end, they will make a recommendation for the top scoring applicants to our board to be our fellows for the year. So that's kind of the process. I don't see any questions so far. All right, so we're gonna go to the application support materials. All materials below must be submitted online with your completed application. So you're going to have to provide proof of age. You just need to be 21 and older. So driver license, the ID or official document that includes applicant name and date of birth. You can submit a ID, passport, birth certificate. If you don't have any of those, that would be fine. Proof of residency, Nevada driver license or ID renewed at least 1 year prior to the application date to show that you've been here for at least a year, or official documents such as utility bill, pay stub, or least dated at least 1 year prior to the application date, and it needs to have your name and your Nevada address listed. All right, so we're going to go over each genre's support material. We'll do literary arts first, and then we'll go into the submittable site. All right, I see a question. Does the fellowship apply to written as well as spoken word poetry? Great question. Yes, it does. This year we added audio and video upload for our poetry discipline. So you can upload a video or audio of spoken word and poetry, your spoken word poetry. And you can also submit, it's up to you how you submit your document, but it could be either a video file or a link or a PDF upload. Okay.
Sapira, this is Krista. Will you allow my video real quick?
Oh,
and
sure.
Pop back
Sorry.
up to the last section so I can make a couple notes.
Okay, you should be able to do that now. Make co-host.
Yes.
I keep clicking make co-host, but it's not doing that for me.
It just tells me that that you have stopped the ability for video.
There we go. Make co-host. There we go.
Oh, there I am. I'm on Sapira. Okay, great. Thank you.
Do you want to introduce yourself, Krista?
Hi, I'm Krista. Thank you for joining us. I know you're seeing me a little bit after we've been on for a while, but here I am. So I just had a couple of comments. Sapira, if you would scroll back up to the last section with the ID, proof of age and residency area. So just as an FYI, if you are not familiar with going through a process of applications, this is an area that often we get the wrong items. So I want to just address that up front as often as possible. So you can see there's different items that you can supply for the proof of age and proof of residency. In an ideal world, you will supply us with your Nevada driver's license to show us that you live in the state of Nevada, which also includes your name, your date of birth, and will show that you are a Nevada resident. So like all of those things are encompassed in that one item. So that is the ideal item to be supplying for that proof of age piece. If you supply that and that ID was issued more than 12 months ago, you do not even have to supply something for proof of residency because that would be encompassing the entire thing. If you use something like your birth certificate, for example, for your proof of age, then you would want to supply something that is an ID in your proof of residency because we need to see that that is you as well. So Nevada driver's license or Nevada issued government ID is ideal kind of all around for that. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me and I can help you walk through that.
Thank you, Krista. Krista is our grant program wizard. So if you have any specific question about our policy, she is a great resource. She'll also be contacting you if there's any issue with your application, and we'll probably go over that in a little bit because it's very specific on how you enter your name and address and stuff like that. So, but we'll go over that in a little bit. Okay, so we're gonna look through your work sample. So your work sample is what the panelists will be reviewing, and of course you want to submit your best work. And there are specific criteria for each of the work sample that you'll be submitting. So for literary work sample, select one category below and submit work sample produced within the last 10 years and at least one work from the last 5 years. Sample should not include work produced during a degree seeking period. So submit each excerpt as a separate PDF file. For creative prose, literary art, fiction or nonfiction, literary work in all varieties and genres, such as excerpts from creative fiction novels, short story, and writing for young adults. Creative nonfiction is distinguished from nonfiction by a strong narrative literary quality found in personal essays and memoirs. A maximum of 15 pages of text and a 200-word synopsis for creative prose submissions. So that 15-page maximum could be just one submission, the book that that have published or whatever, or it could be multiple pieces of work. It just have to total maximum 15 pages. Krista, did you want to add something? Okay, cool. All right, so next is dramatic writing. Includes original stage plays, screenplays, radio play, and audio dramas. Submission must be from the primary creator of the work as opposed to artists interpreting or adopting the works of others. A maximum of 30 pages of text and a 200-word synopsis for this submission. And then poetry. Include original work in all forms and genre of poetry, a maximum of 10 poems, not to exceed 15 pages in total. Titles should appear at the top of the page. Audio or video samples collectively cannot exceed 10-minute total running time. And poetry, there is no 250-word synopsis requirement or submission. Some tips for literary work samples. Sample may include published work and or work in progress. The Nevada Art Council will not accept examples of the following writing types in these categories: collaborative work, journalism, book reviews, editorials, interviews, analytical work, or scholarly writing. This fellowship is really for artists or creatives. So those pieces of writing doesn't fall into the artists that we're looking for. So that's why it's not allowed for this particular opportunity. If you submit work that has been published, you must submit it in manuscript form rather than published form. Do not scan excerpts from a published text. Books, magazine, and photocopies of publication will not be accepted. If you write in a language other than English, please submit an English translation with your original manuscript. Nevada Art Council cannot guarantee that panelists will be competent in your primary language. In general, panelists will judge your application from the English version. And I want to add that is only for dramatic, like if there are other languages in dramatic writing, you have to submit the English translation. I don't believe that we accept any literary submission that is not primarily English, right, Stefan? That's right. We would like to.
That's correct. Everything needs to be, that's exactly correct.
Yeah, we would like to, but at this
point. We've obviously we kind of have the guideline in Spanish to encompass as many folks as we can in this process. So you can write in Spanish, but it's the onus is on you to get that work translated into English and then submitted.
Yeah, and it's also it's a different requirement for our performance artists. So that's just something to keep in mind. Work samples are sole means by which the artistic quality of the individual's work is evaluated. Written material are the only work sample accepted in the literary arts category. Sorry, not written and obviously audio and video works for poetry submissions. As you select the work to submit, consider your audience and make sure the work clearly communicates your ideas and style. If you submit different pieces of work, it is a good idea to make sure they complement each other and show your skill as a writer. If one piece is more developed or dramatically different in style than other, it may confuse the panelists. Therefore, applicants should submit a cohesive body of their strongest work. Do not submit reviews, brochure, publicity material, or any other extraneous material. Okay. So any questions so far about the... Okay, I see Kyla. If I had a video for spoken word and the venue had recorded me, would that be considered a collaborative work? Will I be able to submit it still? Yes, you will be able to submit it. You can, credit the videographer for filming you, but the panelists will not be adjudicating the quality of the video in the literary arts genre. So it will be the video itself. I mean, in your performance and your writing.
And I think it's important. I mean, it should be at least a good enough quality for the panelists to see what's going on. I mean, if it's a really, really bad shot video, right, that could have an impact. It's your submission, it's your work, so it could have an impact on your score. So you want to submit the best quality that you can.
Yeah, thank you for pointing that out, Stefan. Like if it's at a bar and it's really loud, it's hard to hear you, it's hard to see you, it's a cell phone video, you actually might want to consider reshooting it in perhaps a studio space, because you really want to give the judges the best quality material, because that's all they're going to see. All right, any other questions? Okay, we're going to move on to performing arts work samples. Not to be confused as performance art in visual arts. This is specifically for performing artists, theater, dance, musicians. So you're going to provide an artist statement. This is going to be very different from our literary submission work samples. So you're going to provide an artist statement. Provide a description explaining the intent, direction, focus, as aesthetic, thematic content, or form of your work samples. That is a maximum 250 words. Work description. This is optional, so you don't have to provide it, but if it adds to your submission, you may. You can provide a description of the submitted work that gives the panelists a better understanding of your artistic intent and process for the specific work sample submitted. So those two things are specific, they're very different. You might have a overall artist statement that kind of encompass all of your work, but if a specific work sample that you submitted needs a little bit more context, that's where the work description section comes in, and you can provide the panelists with a little bit more information about your work samples. So your work samples, you have to select one category below to submit work samples produced within the last 10 years and at least 2 works from the last 2 years. Samples should not include work produced during a degree seeking period. Again, we're not looking, this is not a scholarship grant opportunity. So we really want established artists or practicing artists to submit what they have produced outside of school. Submit no more than 5 audio and or video example of your work, which collaboratively cannot exceed 10 minutes total running time. Submit an individual file for each distinctive work. For 3 pieces, have 3 individual files and not 1 file with 3 work samples edited together. Work samples should be produced within the last 4 years. Is this right? No. This is not, I don't think this should be there because it's work samples. This is the category. Select one category below to submit. So everything needs to be at least within the last 10 years and at least 2 works from the last 2 years. So we're sorry, we'll take that out. Dance choreography, theater performance, and theater direction. So that's the first category. Includes original choreography and performance in all dance form, including ballet, hip hop, jazz, modern, and tap. Also includes theater performance and direction of a play, opera, musical, or a devised piece of work. So when we say theater performance and theater direction, you could be an actor, actress. That's totally fine. You don't have to also direct. So you can be a dancer, but not a choreographer. That all applies. So I know it may be a little bit confusing in what we accept, but you can, one of our last fellow was a dancer, not a choreographer. So that also applies to you or folks you know. So music performance and composition includes original composition and performance in all musical genres, including chamber, choral, electronic, experimental, jazz, opera, rock, country, pop, and symphonic. So again, you could be a performing musician and not a composer. That's totally fine. That applies to you too. Okay. There's a question that says, how could we submit a poem that was included in an anthology? I'm not sure I understand the question. Stephanie?
Yeah, so I was going to ask, it's Miss Avey there. I would imagine that poem is part of a collection of poems, but I don't know if the anthology is all of yours or if it's different poets. But you can submit the poem if you've written it within the anthology. You could submit just the poem itself, and in a manuscript form. I don't know if that answers your question or not, if there's something different here that I'm not quite understanding.
You could submit another question if that did not answer your question.
Sure, absolutely. I mean, yeah, we'll be happy to kind of walk that through with you. I mean, if you've written the poem and it's part of an anthology, I
That's
don't know
fine.
exactly why you wouldn't be able to submit it, but
Yeah, unless like it relates to other,
right, yeah, if it's a collaborative work, exactly. I don't know.
it might be different. Okay, answer like, are there restrictions on content such as subject matter or profanity? Krista, you can answer that question.
There are, you cannot submit anything of a prurient nature, period, in any shape or form for any of our grants across the board. So if there is sexuality context or sexually suggestive wording, we had somebody last year submit very sexually suggestive music with the verbal cues that were in the music. That is an automatic decline in most cases.
Thank you.
You also cannot do specifically religious, but there's a, I'll have to look at that. I'll get back to it now. Hold on just a second.
Okay, thanks, Krista. But I don't think we have any restrictions on profanity.
Yeah, there is, we try to, this is an interesting discussion, within the agency as well, right? We try to be as inclusive as possible for most items that are submitted, right? Anything gratuitous, over the top, like prurient is the term that's used in our guidelines. So we try to do a really good balance and allow as much as possible. But then we will reach out and let somebody know, obviously very quickly, that there's a problem with the work that's submitted.
And if it's just one work samples, we might reach out and say, do you have something else? We can't use this one, instead of declining the whole application outright. So that's something to keep in mind.
Yeah, I think the one or two that we've declined historically was because the entire everything was very sexually suggestive, and that's we can't accept any of that.
Right. It's not one.
So yeah, if you've got like one piece in there, we will definitely reach out. So as far as the religious one, it's for, we can't accept anything that is for implicit religious content. So that would be something that is perceived as advancing a religious purpose. So that one has a little bit more of a gray area to it, so that we kind of have judgment calls with several staff members when we run across something that might fall into that. And as far as foul language, it's part of the English language. So if there's some foul language within your works, that is typically acceptable. Yes.
Thank you. I hope that answers your question. All right, so we have another question. Camille, can we include work in progress that will be produced this year, but after the submission date? Yes, you can submit work in progress, but make sure that it's in the best form for your panelists.
Yes, and just to add, I'm not trying, I don't think we try to dissuade anyone from applying to the fellowship. This is a grant for artistic excellence. You're competing against very seasoned artists, right? Your work needs to be your best work that you're submitting. So just kind of keep that in mind. Your work samples, do your best here, because you're going to be adjudicated at a very high level.
Yes, absolutely. And I also want to add, like, if you're not sure if the piece is prurient in nature, you can always submit it and then we can review. We would like to, if it's overtly, like, we would like to not have to.
I would say if you think that it might run into that realm, when you submit, send us a message right away too, so that we know that you are aware that it might be, and that's going to help. That's going to help with that situation as well. And for Camille's question, real quick too, yeah, since this isn't a project grant, you can absolutely submit things that are in process for this type of grant.
And I feel like the advancing a religious faith for the criteria in our guideline, I feel like that deals more with our project grant and our operation support grant rather than our artist fellowship. So let's say you are a gospel performer, please do submit, because that's we're looking for quality of your art. And but for this grant specifically, there are a lot of gray areas in that criteria.
Yeah, and but Bob's question there, I was gonna ask if this is children's books that you were talking about, for literary performance for I'm not exactly sure what the performance would be for K-5 classes. So maybe you can expound on that a little bit. Unless Sapira or Krista, you know what that means.
So I don't think our literary guidelines specifically state you cannot submit children's book
Right.
for this fellowship. And there is also nothing in our guideline that says you cannot apply for, well, you can only submit one per year, right?
That is correct.
One application. So you have to either pick a literary or performance to apply this year. And if you feel like maybe next time you want to apply for the performance discipline, you are welcome to, but you can only apply for one.
Yeah, maybe just a little insight as well into panelists.
Performance is the actual book read, poetry, video showcase, and song during the event. So I would say if it's driven by the book and everything else is secondary, it sounds like a literary submission rather than a performance submission. So that would be my suggestion. Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah, so and something to think about as well, we will, as these applications come in, Sapira and I review, and Chris review the applications, review the makeup of the submissions, and then we kind of look at how the panelist makeup is going to be. So if you're in this unique category, maybe of a children's book that you're submitting, right? There's one submission of children's books, right? We really don't go out and look for a panelist who is an expert in children's books. We try to do a broad range of panelists to cover poetry, dramatic writing, prose, all of that. But that's kind of where we look for in our panelists.
Yeah, and that's definitely something to keep in mind.
Definitely something to keep in mind, yeah.
All right, so let me just go over the tips for performing arts work samples. So work sample are the sole means by which the artistic quality of the individual works is evaluated. Edit the samples to begin where you want the panel to begin. The beginning of your work sample is like the beginning of a good film. It should capture the audience attention in the first few seconds. Panelists need to see the best, which may not be the beginning of the performance. And remember, you only have 10 minutes. The initial impression your work sample gives is far more important than presenting the work in what you consider to be in its proper context. Remember that it is not the quality of video or audio clips that you submit, but the quality of each sample that is most important. You are not submitting a montage, you are submitting a work sample. Place close attention to the production quality of your materials. Poor video audio production quality often distract panelists from focusing on the work. That's a great point. Theater artists allow the viewer time to see you perform, develop a character, and interact with other performers. Showing many short clips may not be as effective as showing a longer clip with several monologues or section from full production numbers. Do not submit work samples designed for promotional purposes, such as performance choreography reel or filmography. Do not submit events, again, reviews, brochure, publicity material, other extraneous materials. All right, Camille. Does the work we submit needs to be only as artist or producer choreographer, or can we mix work sample as both artist, producer, choreographer. So you can submit a mix, but you have to fall into the genre. So you cannot submit for dance and then you're a music performer. So you have to pick one of the two. So you can be both, like a stage actor and a director. That would be fine to submit.
And I'm going to add on to that because I'm familiar with Camille's work. So for you in specific, I know that you do choreography and perform the dance number, sometimes as one of the main dancers, or in a group or by yourself. So you just have to pick which one that you're applying as the choreographer or the dancer. In your case, if you were putting it as the dancer, you could also include one of your choreography clips because it's showing you dancing that piece as well.
Thank you. All right, so we're gonna head to our submittable page. I don't think we have the live.
Yeah, it's not on there.
It's not on there yet. Okay. All right, so when you click on the link in the guidelines, that's where you go to submit. We use Submittable as our platform for all of our grant applications. When you sign up for Submittable, please, please, please make sure you're using an email that you check regularly. Because we will more often than not request edits from you. Krista works very hard to make sure our applications are properly submitted before it goes to a panelist. And we don't want to decline your application because you didn't check your email to change like a really small thing. So make sure that after you submit your application, before it goes to panel, you're really checking your email and providing those updates. Sometimes the time frame to make that correction might be just 3 days. So just please make sure that you are checking your email regularly. So when it is available, it's going to show up right here. You're going to click apply and it's going to take you to the application itself. And then Krista, do you want to share some comments and wisdom about applying in Submittable?
Definitely. And I don't know why we didn't think about trying to get it visible right here so they could actually see the application. Our applications are very user friendly though. If you haven't applied with us before, we actually build the applications ourselves. And we make them as absolutely user friendly as possible. So they're pretty basic information as far as your eligibility. You're going to have, just having your name, your address, your phone number. One of the things that you will get a kickback from me right away is if you do not properly capitalize your name, and your address. So if you send something in and your name is in full caps or all lower caps, same with your address, it's going to get kicked back to you for fixing that. So just doing that proper right away is a fantastic idea. Sometimes that's the only thing that an application gets kicked back for, but it looks like you do have access to it. Good. Perfect.
Yeah, I'm in preview mode, so I can start it.
Yeah, and then I also mentioned earlier the thing with the ID, using the Nevada ID or driver's license is definitely the best piece to include to cover your Nevada residency, your name, your birthday, all of those things that are really basic eligibility requirements. And then one other thing, since fellowship is concealed, they're not allowed to see your name. When you have the literary samples or your performance samples, make sure the beginning of that video or the beginning of your written sample does not include your name as the writer or your name as the person in the performance. And we do check throughout the films when they're video audio samples too, and sometimes that winds up at the very end for the closing. That, oh, this is this person and this is their Insta handle where you can reach them at. Don't include that in there because it will be kicked back to you to remove it.
Great, thank you. I see a question, will those corrections only be allowed before the submission deadline?
No. So once the submissions come in, sometimes we don't even start looking at submissions until after the application has closed for submissions. So most of the time, you're not going to see the request for those edits until after the submission timeframe has closed. When those do get kicked back to applicants for corrections, you will be given 3 days, not business days. So for instance, anything that I'm sending out to applicants today for corrections in the applications that we have in right now are going to be due on Sunday. So that's end of day Sunday, midnight. And then occasionally there will be a small extension if there's extenuating circumstances, especially if you reach out to us and let us know that something is going on in your life that you need a little bit more time.
And there is a caveat to that, that as we punch closer to, if Krista has reached out and asked you to, and this is probably the thing that Sapira mentioned about the correct email address, and getting back with you. If we're into the last 2 or 3 days before we're getting ready to release these to the panelists and you haven't got back to us, then that's going to be a problem. So you need to try to get it as fixed as quickly as possible in those 3 days, because if you wait longer, it could be a problem.
Yeah. In fact, I had somebody I had to decline today because I've emailed them several times and called and have no responses, and they haven't fixed anything. So unfortunately, they're out, and it was really, really easy things that they could have fixed.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, please check your email. That's all. That's all.
Because it's a lot of work to be denied, to be denied there at the last minute. So
yeah. And then especially for our fellowship, you have to wait 2 years before you can apply again.
That's correct.
So it's hard. So here is a sample of the application. So I understand the proper capitalization and punctuation as well as legal spelling are required for all name and address data. So what Krista is saying, like, please don't all caps, don't all lowercase when you submit.
And there's another tiny note on that too. That also is reflected in your submittable profile, which is separate from your application. It is your profile with a submittable system. Don't use your Instagram handle, which I have seen several times that people call themselves by what their Instagram or artist name is. That submittable profile name also needs to be your legal name. And as you'll see in a second, there is a space for your artistic name if you have a chosen artist stage performance name as well.
Thank you. And we do that because we will send you a contract if you do win. So we do want the information that we could use for across the board. All right, so I understand all communication regarding the application preferential grant award will be sent to the email address associated with the submittable account. I have confirmed that this email address is accurate and a monitored email account. And then you're gonna all fields marked with a asterisk are required. So here are your information, your legal name, your artist stage name, your primary address, your phone number, and then you're gonna pick one of the 4 categories. Again, so we have 4 categories, we have 4 different panels, but only a total of 10 fellows will be selected, 5 from literary arts and 5 from performing arts. All right, and this year we are not offering this fellowship for visual artists. So if you're your performance artists that mainly work in gallery or museum spaces, this fellowship is not for you. That you should apply for the visual art fellowship next year. All right, so I hope that you have read the guidelines since we just went through them. And you should definitely read our grant policy. And then there are some more information about eligibility. I understand that this is a competitive grant, therefore all application will be funded or application may be funded at less than the requested amount. But if you're our fellows, you will be receiving $5,000 if you are selected. But just in case, and we do ask this for all of our grants.
And I'll go in and update that verbiage because the less than requested amount is not accurate for this.
That's correct.
Yeah.
That's more like of a PGA.
Yeah, for this one, it's really that not all applications will be funded because there are only going to be 10 across the board, regardless of how many applications come in.
Yeah. I am a US citizen or have legal resident status. And if you're not sure, let us know. We're happy to talk to you about it. I am not enrolled as a degree seeking student. Again, you could be enrolled in college classes, but you should not be seeking a degree. I am 21 years or older. So those are all our eligibility questions. You're going to upload your proof of age, your proof of residency. We ask that you are a resident of Nevada for at least a year or 12 consecutive months. And lastly, I have not previously received 2 or more fellowship grants from the Nevada Arts Council. So if you have won twice in your lifetime, thank you for being our fellows, but let's have somebody else. No, we really value your work, but yeah, you're only allowed to receive 2 fellowships from us in your lifetime. Okay, so here's the artist statement or synopsis for if you are a literary, creative prose or dramatic writing submission, and or your performing arts in dance, theater, and music. And then you will also be uploading the work samples, but I think, where is the work samples upload? I think I have to click one of these first.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Okay. Here. Okay, yeah. So after you selected your category, then the work sample statement upload, the work sample upload will show up. So you can choose a file. And again, they're all different for each of the category. That's how it's set up in submittable. So for example, if you are performing arts, you will have a work sample upload, and then once you choose a file and you upload it, we'll also ask you specific question, like if you're submitting a clip of a play, like which of the character, what role are you playing, and we'll ask you specific about the work samples that you've uploaded. Again, you can only upload 10 minutes total runtime for your audio and video work samples that's combined. And then make sure that your name or any identifying information are not within the samples and the statement that you've uploaded. Obviously, if you're a performer, of course, your face will be identifiable, and that's fine. That's totally fine. We're asking you to not submit any name, Instagram handles, Twitter handles. I don't know.
Well, that's extremely important because every year we have to go back and, folks promote themselves usually in either through YouTube or where, wherever you're, any identifying texts or information about you in those videos have got to come out. So please edit that out before you submit.
And also don't include information about your family members. Last year, we had a gentleman say, "This is who my mother is," and gave her name, which made him identifiable. So don't include things like that. Anything that we can identify you with. Your face can be in your video because it is you performing or giving the verbal of your literary work. That's permitted. Anything else is not.
Great, thank you. Okay, I see a question for written submission. Should manuscript be single space or double space?
Double spaced.
Double space, thank you. All right.
And typically 1-inch margins, so pretty readable, because they're going to be reading 10 pages worth of things. So you want to make it so that their eyes can actually kind of go with the lines when it's real close together, or on a narrow, can't even think of the word right now, but narrow margins for your documents. It's going to be really difficult for them to read across those.
Yeah, I thought that we had that built into the application before. It's something we need to look at, that the format should be.
It used to be. I think it's just in our policies now.
I see. Okay. And then it's more certification that you're making sure the work sample, this is for specifically performing arts, that your work samples has been produced within the last 10 years, so nothing older than 10 years. And at least 2 work samples are from the last 2 years, 24 months. But if you are a literary artist, if you're submitting just 1 book, that book needs to be written within the last 10 years and at least 1 sample from the last 5 years. And then you will provide us with your electronic signature, today's date, and then we have a voluntary demographic survey. This really helps us solidify our outreach efforts. So if you could, you please do fill it out, but it's completely voluntary and it is not shown to anybody except internal folks. So I think that's
that's not part of the adjudication process at all.
right. So panelists will not see it.
Yeah.
It's so that we really try to make sure that our funding is going out, that they're reaching demographics, geographical locations, different nationalities, and all of these things, and it allows us to see that the efforts that we're putting into that is actually helping us to be able to diversify where our funding goes a little more.
All right, so I don't see any more questions.
That's amazing.
I know, we usually have a bunch.
I feel like we answered 14 questions, so I feel pretty good about that.
Yeah.
So if there are no more questions, thank you for attending. And if you've missed anything, this will be available on YouTube probably next week if you want to refresh. And please do share this fellowship and all of our grants opportunities to your friends. Tell them our project grant for artists specifically, it's not as competitive as the fellowship. We're only awarding 5 per discipline. It's probably one of our most competitive grant. And it's like that, you know, in all states to have artist fellowship, but our project grants are a wonderful opportunity, and we really do want to fund your projects. We offer those twice a year, and it's $3,000 you can apply every year. So with that, thank you so much, and have a wonderful day.
Thanks for joining us.
Bye.